Queen Elizabeth I of England was named the Virgin Queen. Not surprisingly, she preferred to remain single all her life. But why did Elizabeth I never get married? Nothing in Elizabeth's life was normal. She was born in 1533, the daughter of King Henry VIII, with his second wife, Anne Boleyn. After her mother's fall and execution in 1536, Elizabeth was declared illegitimate and her position weakened. She would never be queen. Instead, she saw her younger half-brother rule as Edward VI in 1547, followed by her older half-sister Mary I in 1553. 5 years later, surprisingly, she inherited the crown at the age of only 25. Therefore, the previously illegitimate daughter of an executed noblewoman became Queen of England. After she took the crown in 1558, everyone asked the same question: who would the Queen marry? But at the end of her reign in 1603, everyone was wondering, why did the Queen never marry? And it is this question that we will try to answer in today's video. Henry VIII, Queen Elizabeth's father, ended his marriages just as quickly as he celebrated them. As a child, Elizabeth witnessed the dangers of these unions. Jane Seymour died in childbirth, Anne of Cleves was divorced, and Catherine Howard was executed, and her mother had also been sentenced to death. But the beheading of Catherine Howard in 1542 left a deep and disturbing mark on Elizabeth. It led the 8-year-old princess to swear, "I shall never marry." When Henry VIII died in 1547, his sixth and final wife, Catherine Parr, assumed guardianship of Elizabeth, who was only 14 years old. Catherine married Thomas Seymour, who focused his attentions on his wife's teenage stepdaughter. Rumors circulated about Seymour's interest in the princess, leading Elizabeth's housekeeper to attest, "He would appear many mornings in Lady Elizabeth's room before she was ready, just before she got out of bed. And if she was up, he would wish her good morning and ask how she was, and pat her on the back or buttocks." Catherine Parr realized what was happening between her husband and her stepdaughter and established a distance between the two. But when she died in 1548, there were no longer any boundaries between Seymour and Elizabeth. He planned to make the princess his wife and take power from his half-brother King Edward VI. But Seymour's scheme collapsed, and he was arrested and executed before he could force Elizabeth to marry. This harassment during her youth left deep scars on the Queen regarding marriage and married life. Another fact that contributed to Elizabeth never marrying was the disastrous marriage of her sister, Queen Mary Tudor. Elizabeth's older half-sister became Queen of England in 1553. Many revived Catholicism in England, and to seal the deal, she married a Catholic husband, Philip of Spain. The marriage was unpopular in England. Many Protestants feared that Mary's marriage to Philip would forever alter the English religious context. Xenophobia in Tudor England was also intense, and many believed that Philip exerted an undesirable foreign influence on the kingdom. Concerns about Philip's influence were so powerful that they prompted a short marriage. Mary's marriage was a warning to her younger sister. Elizabeth may have thought that it was better not to have a royal consort than to marry the wrong prince. Besides, a marriage to a Catholic was out of the question. When Elizabeth ascended the throne, she went on to lead a kingdom violently divided between Catholics and Protestants. Her father had turned England into a Protestant nation, but her older half-sister, Mary, led the English back to Catholicism. As a supporter of Protestantism, Elizabeth did not want to risk marrying a Catholic husband, as this would be unpopular and raise many political uncertainties. But Elizabeth and her ministers considered several marriage proposals from Catholic suitors: the French Duke of Alençon, the Archduke Charles of Austria. Her widowed brother-in-law Philip of Spain was also Catholic. If she married, she would have to choose a Protestant, but he would not be English. Some of Elizabeth's potential suitors came from the kingdom's aristocracy. The main one was Robert Dudley, 1st Earl of Leicester, with whom she had a deep connection. Choosing a husband from the English aristocracy jeopardized partisanship at court, as it would choose one family over others. This would cause divisions at court, a risk she did not want to take. It was a lesson well learned by Elizabeth. Her father, Henry VIII, had had 4 wives from landowning families in England: Jane Seymour, Catherine Howard, Catherine Parr, and Anne Boleyn, Elizabeth's mother. After each new marriage, the other families at court divided and realigned themselves to compete for favor and undermine the others. Another important fact is that if she married, she would have to share power with her husband. Elizabeth's claim to the throne was not exactly solid. After all, Henry VIII had declared her illegitimate in 1536 before inviting her back into the family. The marriage could further reduce Elizabeth's autonomy. Although she was the daughter of King Henry VIII, Elizabeth would probably end up losing some authority to her husband. As Scotland's diplomat Sir James Melville deduced, "I know the truth of the matter, my lady. You need not tell me. Your Majesty thinks if you were married, you would be but Queen of England, and now you are both King and Queen." In an attempt to maintain exclusive power on her throne, Elizabeth remained unmarried. On a personal level, she believed that marriage was quite unstable. The biggest example was her father, who had made her stay away from matrimony. Of Henry VIII's 6 wives, he divorced 2, executed 2 others, and lost 1 during labor. It is possible that her father's turbulent romantic life made Elizabeth believe in the dangers rather than the pleasures of married life. Elizabeth's cousin and rival, the Queen of Scots, Mary Stuart, also showed that marriage was risky. 2 of Mary's 3 husbands stirred political conflict. Her second husband, Lord Darnley, angered the Scottish aristocracy, and her third husband, Lord Bothwell, hastened Mary's deposition. With examples like these, she naturally feared marriage. Elizabeth was also very clever. She used being unmarried as a diplomatic currency. She did not refuse marriage proposals, rather agreed to meet with prospective spouses and discuss the possibility of marriage. Participating in marriage negotiations allowed Elizabeth and her ministers to establish diplomatic routes with other kingdoms. The possibility of brokering a marriage alliance with Elizabeth also encouraged foreign leaders to act subtly rather than aggressively in their policies towards England. The fact that Elizabeth was available increased the likelihood of diplomatically resolving conflicts with other nations. And, finally, being unmarried allowed Elizabeth to call herself the Bride of the Realm and Virgin Queen. Elizabeth strategically adopted her single status and used it to redefine herself in biblical and mythological terms. She constructed the image of herself as the Virgin Queen. Elizabeth used this image to create her own cult of personality and dazzle her subjects. The Queen also stressed the idea that she was actually a married woman, even proclaimed before Parliament, "I am already married to the Kingdom of England, when I was crowned with this ring, which I always have as a symbol of that." By positioning herself as the bride of her kingdom, Elizabeth created a symbolic role for herself that went beyond the bounds of earthly marriage and placed her in posterity as a legendary queen.